Alpha Team, this is Chief of Security Blanchard. Are you a sight for sore eyes? I've been holed up in the mansion since yesterday trying to organize a containment response. Now that you're here, let's lock down that AO.
By the way, Donald Trump continues to attack Canada, notwithstanding the fact that Donald Trump backed down for now on his tariff threat against Canada. Look, Canadians right now, they're still boycotting American products. They're buying Canada right now. In addition, there's a Canadian travel boycott which developed organically, which could cost the United States at least $2.1 billion in tourism dollars, according to the U.S. Travel Association. Maybe back more than that. I don't even think the U.S. Travel Association the scope of Canada boycott. They're not coming to the United States of America unless they're forced to. One, they want to boycott the United States. Two, they just don't think the United States is safe right now with Donald Trump letting the FAA any semblance of regulations and a government ensuring the safety of the people. Look what Donald Trump posted over the weekend yet again. More taunts against Canada. Donald Trump backed down. Prime Minister Trudeau united Canada in a coalition against him. Donald Trump did not impose the tariffs yet, but Donald Trump said that there would be a 30-day extension. So what Donald Trump can try to control and abuse Canada and Canadians more. Just look at what Donald Trump posted on Sunday. He reposted this article from Mediaite, which says Justin Trudeau says that Trump was not joking about annexing Canada, that Trump really wanted to conquer Canada and make it a state.
Exactly
Donald Trump posting this, Donald Trump once again continues to Canada, conquering, annexing. And so Canadians are like, screw these people.
I'm just going to pretend it's a side effect from the ones that voted.
No, and not all
What kind of cataract is going
but
on
if
today?
we voted for this guy, he's out there right now attacking us. We have to defend ourselves, and you betrayed us. See you later, America. Canada is united now, still more than ever. Let me just show you some of these incredible clips of some Canadian leaders, like the Minister of Employment, Workforce Development, and Labour of Canada. Here's Steve McKinnon. Here, play this clip. Canada's free. Canada is sovereign. Canada will choose its own destiny. Very much. Canada is forever. So, Canada will make its choice. Canada, as we all know, we have regions, we have political differences, we have debates, we have life. Not a question of that. Canada is pride. We will always for this country, for its people, and for we need to make our choices for ourselves. Here is the Honorable Francois Philippe Champagne. Here he is right here. He's the Minister of Innovation, Science, and Industry, saying that Canada's sovereignty is not a debate here. We're not having these discussions about becoming the 51st state. Canada united. America should take note that Canada is more united now than ever and will stand up to bullies. Here, play this clip.
We're going to defend our workers and our interests, and we will always defend our sovereignty. And I think the one thing we've seen in Washington is that they know that we can set up Canada and should put in question the sovereignty of Canada.
One thing, that's like point blank.
Listen, my job is to fight them that, no one can break the will of Canadians and the proud of Canadians and the sovereignty of Canada. This is not going to happen, and the way to create a something in Washington is by being strong, by being resilient, and by doing the things that we've just talked about.
And one of the things that they're doing in Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and others, are focusing a lot on strengthening their relationships with reliable allies, like those in the European Union. Prime Minister Trudeau announced he will travel to Paris and Brussels to participate in the AI Action Summit and Canada EU leaders meeting. Its progress on international trade, artificial intelligence and transatlantic cooperation. Here is Canadian Trade Minister over here talking about deepening its ties to the European Union's plate.
That's coming to war, so we're great. We see a 65 Canada. Direct investment. Good. Talk about what can we do better? What can we do more of? Because Britain is a market and it's great numbers, but what more can we do to help Canadian businesses enter into this of the 27? What more can we do to do the same in Canada for European businesses? We needs that.
Let's chat more about that travel boycott, if you will. The U.S. Travel Association warns of economic tourism disaster after thousands of Canadian tourists canceled trips in protest. Canadian travelers decided to fight back against the announcement by Donald Trump on tariffs. The travel boycott, in addition to other boycotts raised by frustrated with how Trump's been behaving, is targeting American tourists. The U.S. Travel Association warned that the U.S. government's move to impose these tariffs against foreign tourism disaster. But regardless of what the tariffs are imposed, Canada is boycotting traveling to the U.S. Let's put the comments down right now. If you're from Canada and you boycotted, if you insulted, share your story. I'll read that as you're going to make. But Trump's tariffs is going to drive down the volume of Canadian visitation and foreign spending in the United States. David Eby, the Premier of British Columbia, said Canadians should really be thinking carefully about spending money in the United States. The Flight Centre, Canada's largest travel agency, told Forbes it has seen a surge of customers already canceling U.S. vacations and rebooking elsewhere. Even a 10% reduction in Canadian inbound travel would translate to 2 million fewer visits, which would be $2.1 billion in lost spending and 140,000 jobs jeopardized in the hospitality and related sectors, according to the U.S. engagement. That's by the why I said I thought the U.S. even projections were low. I think Canada Canadians will be boycotting far more than 8% reduction. 10% would be 2.1 billion plus. Canada spends about $22 billion a year in tourism to the United States. I wouldn't be surprised if the damage would be closer to $15 billion when Canadians say we are not playing in the United States, period. It is a scarlet letter for Canadians to come to the United States and to support an America led by Donald Trump, who wants it and wants to conquer it and make it a 51st state. In the top 5 most visited states by Canadians, Florida, California, Nevada, New York, and Texas.
Well, it is a perfect time to bring in Kevin O'Leary. Did these 11 penal errors concern you?
No, I'll start tariffs with escalating that trade war. But let's talk about tariffs. Number one, what Trump is doing is looking all around the world, including Canada, and saying, well, there's an imbalance in tariffs, particularly in India, for example. They have some tariffs north of 20% on certain sectors, but he's going to balance that out. So India's going to tax the U.S. at 24%, reciprocal on the same goods and services in the U.S. That's just making a level playing field.
Look who's keeping up with you, guys.
I think it's a renegotiation of NAFTA, if you want to call it that. The reason aluminum 70% imports in the U.S. comes from Canada is Canada is the cheapest power in North America. You need a lot of electricity to make aluminum. Most of us know that build data centers in the U.S. that there's no power left on the grid. Canadians have it in that gas, they have it in hydro. So that's really a discussion about an integration of the economies that's beginning. Unfortunately for Canada, we're in a limbo zone there because the government is fallen and there's no elections for another 6 weeks. So we don't have anybody to negotiate with right now. Trudeau, as you know, has fallen out of favor, doesn't have a mandate with the Canadian people. However, the premiers, like Doug Ford in Ontario and Daniel Smith, talking with parts like Doug Bergen, Goodnick, they're all talking every day. So there's stuff going on here. But
Pumpkinhead's the fun of profit.
Well,
And business is booming.
Hardball and talking about specifically what made him put it on the top. He doesn't look too pleased when you play that soundbite and get the reaction roll. Some Canada have actually devoted them on border security and drug treatment. A lot of sectors around it's not good enough. What do you think?
I've always said about Trump, you got to distinguish the noise from the signal. The signal for Canada is, look, let's talk economic union and ultimately no tariffs in either east or west, north or south. That's the behemoth economy that he's spoken of multiple times. Now, when he says we got to buy the country, make it the 51st state, that gets the Canadians' ire up. They don't want to sell sovereignty, but they are interested in the union. Mexico different. We've got that whole border situation with illegal immigrants. Fentanyl, both countries don't have anything to do with. So, you know, a $1.3 billion announcement in Canada, $200 million out of Ontario, then another $39 million out of... So they're playing all the Trump. But the big prize is the economic union. Keep your eye on that ball, and that's just Trump negotiating.
That's fascinating. So the next one is kind of penny ante, but we want to talk to you about it anyway. The penny, the United States penny. Donald Trump wants to stop writing. It says it costs does cost 2 cents for every penny that you make. It seems to make any sense. What do you make of all this? Getting rid of the penny.
Well, he's right. It's stupid. He's got to buy for one.
That's an old. Update on the TikTok.
Yeah, but good shows that all the staff now. They're filtering through the bids to try to figure out well, now see, you're going to pose the gender, figure out if it's got the ability to pose if it doesn't. Try to figure out.
President Trump said he will be imposing a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports today. My sources also tell me to expect tariffs on Europe announced this week with a reciprocal VAT tax applied to it. That should be announced either Tuesday or Wednesday. Here's White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller with me yesterday on Sunday Morning Futures.
The president's making clear that we are going to pursue a policy of reciprocity. In other words, if we're getting charged 30% by Europe, then we need to charge them 30% in return. If they want to be charged less than 30%, they're going to have to lower their barriers so that it's fair and equal and, yes, reciprocal treatment. Here's another area where Europe is engaging in predatory practices. Tech companies are subject to digital taxes, censorship, and onerous financial penalties that are tens of billions of dollars every single year. Obviously, that has to go into the reciprocal treatment as well. You cannot have a situation where our country, our auto companies, our tech companies are just a piggy bank for Europe.
Yep. Chinese tariffs on about $14 billion worth of U.S. goods is also taking effect today. They range from 10 to 15%, and those tariffs will impact crude oil, liquefied natural gas, farm machinery, and other products. Joining me now is West Virginia Congressman Riley Moore. Congressman, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here, and I know that you recently introduced the U.S. Reciprocal Trade Act, which boosts President Trump's ability to negotiate and issue tariffs. Why was that necessary?
Well, Maria, thanks so much for having me on. And I do believe it's necessary to the point that Stephen Miller that was just talking about, and it's trying to address these non-tariff trade barriers. And I believe this would give the president greater latitude to be able to implement reciprocity as it relates to tariffs, specifically around those non-tariff trade barriers that we've heard about. Regulations, could be taxes, could be subsidies. Obviously, we're not subsidizing our industries here in the United States the way that they are in Europe or China or around the world. So we have to be able to compete. And if those markets, if we're going to compete in those markets and our companies are going to have entrance into those markets, well, they're going to have to make it a little bit more fair. President Trump has said he is for free trade, but for fair trade. And that's what that bill is trying to address.
Yeah, and I know the president is making things reciprocal because the United States has been on their back feet when it comes to this for many, many years. But do you expect that this is going to trickle through the economy and push prices up? I mean, for example, steel and aluminum imports. Does that give the car makers, broad freedom to go raise prices on their cars because they have to pay more for aluminum and steel?
No, I don't think so. I think that what's going to end up happening is we've seen the president be able to leverage these tariffs to actually lower tariffs and create freer trade and better opportunity for our auto manufacturers and things of that nature. Yeah, obviously, if you go to Europe right now, you're not going to find an F-150 driving down the street of Munich, Germany, but you're going to find many, many European automobiles right here flooded in our markets. Of course, we like those cars, but our automobile makers here have no ability to be able to compete. So that's where the reciprocity comes in. So, I don't think it's going to raise prices at all.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of President Trump's agenda is actually anti-inflationary, certainly when you think about the deregulation that's coming. So I'm not as worried as some in the market, certainly, about this issue. But I want to get your take on Congress and what the Senate is doing. The senators were in Mar-a-Lago on Friday for a meeting with President Trump, and Republicans are going against House Speaker Mike Johnson's wishes, releasing their plan to fund President Trump's agenda the way the senators discussed it Friday. Senate Budget Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham said that the resolution will increase annual spending by nearly $86 billion, fully offset with spending cuts. Speaker Johnson admitted that there could be another delay for the House's reconciliation bill in an effort to firm up all these details. Meanwhile, a group of more than 10 New York Democrats, led by Jerry Nadler, sent a letter urging Speaker Johnson to include a repeal of the state and local tax deduction in any tax bill. So, Congressman, you've got lots of different groups within the Congress who have their own priorities, whether it's the priority of cutting spending or the priority of lifting the SALT deduction. How will this all come together? And do you feel that the Republicans are united in just getting President Trump's agenda through?
Well, just last week I was at the White House with a group of Republican lawmakers there in the House where we were discussing that path forward. And not only did we meet there for almost over 4 hours at the White House, we then met in Speaker Johnson's office later that evening. We were very close, and it was a very, very productive conversation that we had. I think we can do all of these things that we're discussing, and that's the idea here of doing one big, beautiful bill, as the president has called it, and we can reduce mandatory spending while also extending the Trump tax cuts. You're going to see SALT is going to be addressed in a bill like this, and so we can do all of these things, but we're really in an inflection point where we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity here in unified government to actually address mandatory spending.
Yeah.
Mandatory spending is the biggest driver of the debt in this country, and so we have to address that. And that's what the House Republicans are so solely focused on, while taking care of all these other agenda items that we've discussed, taxes and all the like.
So you do believe that there will be an effort to cut into mandatory spending in order to get some offsets for some of the spending in the reconciliation bill?
Yes, that's what we've been discussing, and as I said, I think this is our once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You see government shutdowns over discretionary spending all the time in the appropriations bills. Just to be clear, discretionary spending is only 26% of every dollar that's spent annually in the United States. So we got nearly.
You have a lot of choices, yeah.
Mandatory, and if we don't address that, I mean, we're in a world of hurt. You got 75% of it's mandatory spending.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be talking about this a lot recently because what I'm told is what looks like it's mandatory may not be actually Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid and be mandatory at all. So, Congressman, we'll be watching your work on that to see what is mandatory, what isn't, and what you can cut out of that. Riley Moore, thank you, sir. House Speaker Mike Johnson admitting there could be another delay for the House reconciliation bill in an effort to firm up all of the details that are going to go into it. Johnson wants to combine all of the president's top wishes into one massive bill, while also finding cuts to offset things like the Trump tax cuts, border security. A group of more than 10 New York Democrats, led by Jerry Nadler, have sent a letter urging Speaker Johnson to include a repeal of the state and local tax deduction in any bill. They say that the SALT and Deductibility Act has strong bipartisan support, and they're offering to work with Republicans to pass it. Joining me now is Maryland Congressman and Freedom Caucus Chairman Andy Harris. Mr. Chairman, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. So what do you make of this new push now to increase the SALT deduction?
Well, it's definitely going to be part of the negotiation on the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act extension, no question about it. But Maria, the other thing that's in there is actually adjustment to the AMT. And obviously, one has to go in hand with the other. So again, this is going to be subject to negotiation because if we remove the SALT tax, a lot of those people are going to be subject to AMT. So again, this is a balancing act. The members of the Freedom Caucus agree that we need to do something to reform SALT, but it's unclear that just removing the caps entirely is either fiscally responsible or possible.
Yeah, it's a great point, especially since you have so many others who are also having a voice in this discussion who want to cut spending. I mean, let's face it. You got net interest cost of $881 billion in fiscal year 24. Interest on the debt is the single largest item in the budget behind Social Security, more than spending on defense, Medicare, and children. So how are you going to work on all of this together when you've got serious costs in terms of defense, $125 billion there, in terms of the border, $150 billion at a minimum there, and then you've got all these new tax cuts that President Trump has introduced into the conversation. No tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, and now you're talking about lifting the SALT deduction?
Well, you're right, Maria. The fact is that, we have to send a signal to the financial markets that we're serious on bending the deficit curve. I do believe that there is, as Doge and Elon Musk are finding out, there are hundreds of billions of dollars of money improperly spent in the U.S. government. There are programs where people who are ineligible, like Medicaid, still collect or still are on those programs. We have to look at every program. The president said, look, Social Security and Medicare benefits off the table. We get it. But we have to look at really every other program to see to it that we can deliver the tax cuts and that we can deliver on deficit reduction.
Yeah, it's a great point that you make because obviously the majority of our spending is mandatory spending. But recently, as I've asked this question of how are you going to come up with offsets, what I keep hearing from your colleagues is that, well, all mandatory spending is not mandatory. So 76% of the spending is considered mandatory on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, but are there other programs in that 76% that don't touch those programs?
Well, there are. Look, we think that there should be work requirements for able-bodied people who choose not to work. We don't think they should be on Medicaid. We don't think they should be receiving food stamps. There are ways that, again, we can cut the tremendous increase in what we call the non-Social Security, non-Medicare, non-interest payment part of mandatory spending. There are tremendous opportunities. We've uncovered them. We're going to be talking about them over the next few weeks because we think that's the gold mine that needs to be hit.
So Senate Republicans are going against the House Speaker in terms of his ideas on this one bill. They released their $430 billion plan to fund the president's agenda, and Senate Budget Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham wants two bills. He said that the resolution will increase annual spending by nearly $86 billion, fully offset with the spending cuts. The bill provides money for border security, deportation, but it does not extend Trump's tax cuts. The Senate expected to come out with a tax bill later this year, Congressman. So what about that
Newt Gingrich said if you're going to separate tax cuts out of the other stuff, you better have that done by July 4th. I mean, this is a really, fast calendar. Number one, are you expecting the large reconciliation bill on the president's desk by Memorial Day? And number two, will you be able to follow that up with tax cuts if you do this in two different bills?
Well, Maria, the most important thing is to get the president the monies he needs to control the border and to begin on his defense enhancement, Iron Dome, things like that.
Yeah.
So that's what the Senate does. I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. The Freedom Caucus has said, look, we don't care whether it's one or two bills, but it needs to be started now because we need to get the president needs. So again, whether it's one or two bills, we don't care. I do agree with the Speaker. We need to have this done by summer. I think we can do it. But if we go with one big bill, what we're doing is we're seeing roadblocks in the House. That's the problem.
So, in other words, if you go with one big bill, you've got people in the House who are saying, no, I'm not going to sign that. I'm not going to support that because the salt increase is not in there, for example. Or no, I'm not going to support that because you're not cutting enough spending and the offsets are not there.
That's right. Well, those are complicated issues. We will resolve them by summer. The question is, will we resolve them by 2 or 3 weeks from now? And I think we're not going to. So, again, the House needs to decide. Are we going to do something quickly? If not, perhaps the Senate approach is the way to go.
So it sounds to me like you've resigned to the fact that the reality is it's got to be two bills.
Well, again, I was a little disappointed in the House Budget Committee. If we don't move on a bill this week, we are weeks behind schedule, and the president needs money for that border security.
Great point. You're absolutely right. Now you're talking about this week. It better be done this week. Meanwhile, while the president has had an incredible number of wins in the first 3 weeks, he's digging into these tariffs. I want to get your take on this. It's going to impose a 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imports today. And my sources tell me that tariffs on Europe are very close behind, that he's going to do a reciprocal tariff on Europe, and that will include a VAT tax applied to the tariff because Europe charges us a VAT tax. That's going to be announced later on this week. Here's White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller with me yesterday on Sunday Morning Futures. Watch.
The president's making clear that we are going to pursue a policy of reciprocity. In other words, if we're getting charged 30% by Europe, then we need to charge them 30% in return. If they want to be charged less than 30%, they're going to have to lower their barriers so that it's fair and equal and, yes, reciprocal treatment. Here's another area where Europe is engaging in predatory practices. Tech companies are subject to digital taxes, censorship, and onerous financial penalties that are tens of billions of dollars every single year. Obviously, that has to go into the reciprocal treatment as well. You cannot have a situation where our country, our auto companies, our tech companies are just a piggy bank for Europe.
Yeah, and now China is already retaliating, sir. Chinese tariffs on about $14 billion worth of U.S. goods take effect today. That range is from 10 to 15%, impacting crude oil, liquefied natural gas, farm machinery, and other products, Congressman. And by the way, you just heard Stephen Miller talk about what Europe does in terms of digital taxes and all this other stuff on our tech companies. China's not far behind because there's a good story in the Journal this morning. Here it is. China's strategy in trade war threaten U.S. tech companies. First line, officials in Beijing building a list of potential targets of antitrust probes, hoping to influence tech executives close to President Trump so he backs off on the tariff. So we got it coming from all sides, Congressman.
That's absolutely right. The president has made it clear that, again, there will be reciprocity, just like Miller said. I mean, look, if Europe wants to hide its tariffs under the guise of VAT taxes or, again, going after tech and digital, we have to uncover that, and we have to, again, begin a discussion about rolling those back.
Yeah, and by the way, we haven't even talked about this USAID, whatever you want to call it. I mean, all this money, $2 million for sex changes, LGBTQ activism in Guatemala, $6 million to fund tourism in Europe, $4.5 million to combat disinformation in Kazakhstan. Wow. Congressman, were you aware of this money that is being paid out from USAID?
We suspected for years that there was basically a RICO deal going on in USAID, that there was gross corruption, there was conspiracy to hide where this money was going, and thank goodness that Elon Musk has found a paper trail for where that money was going. It infuriates many Americans, and they deserve to be infuriated over this.
Yeah, we all are. Congressman, good to see you. We'll be following your work, sir. Thank you.
The president wasting no time on his way to the big game, announcing new tariffs coming. Watch.
We'll also be announcing steel tariffs on any steel coming into the United States is going to have a 25% tariff. A little bit of 25%. I'll be announcing probably Tuesday or Wednesday at a news conference reciprocal tariffs. And very simply, it's if they charge us, we charge them. That's all. Almost immediately. But I'll be announcing the details of it, highly detailed, and it'll be great for everybody, including the other countries. But if they are charging us 130% and we're charging them nothing, it's not going to stay that way. Every country will be reciprocal.
I heard it all first on Sunday Morning Futures. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller joined me on Sunday Morning Futures yesterday, and we discussed the details of a potential reciprocal tariff with a VAT tax added to it. Watch this. I was told by a source that President Trump is going to announce reciprocal tariffs against Europe, but it's going to be more than just reciprocal. He's also going to add on more to the tariff to cover the VAT tax, which Europe charges us, a VAT tax. So can you tell us what we are expecting next week?
The president's making clear that we are going to pursue a policy of reciprocity. In other words, if we're getting charged 30% by Europe, then we need to charge them 30% in return. If they want to be charged less than 30%, they're going to have to lower their barriers so that it's fair and equal and, yes, reciprocal treatment. Here's another area where Europe is engaging in predatory practices. Tech companies are subject to digital taxes, censorship, and onerous financial penalties that are tens of billions of dollars every single year. Obviously, that has to go into the reciprocal treatment as well. You cannot have a situation where our country, our auto companies, our tech companies are just a piggy bank for Europe.
Yes, this all comes as China's retaliatory tariffs are taking effect. They took effect yesterday on $14 billion worth of U.S. goods. Trump telling Fox News' Brett Baer last night how tariffs will impact American citizens. Watch.
You said that the tariff is a beautiful word. There are some signs in the markets, consumer confidence, that they're a little jittery. So if all goes to plan, when do you think families will be able to feel prices going down, groceries, energy, or are you kind of saying to them, hang on, inflation may get worse until it gets better?
No, I think we're going to become a rich. Look, we're not that rich right now. We have $36 trillion. That's because we let all these nations take advantage of us. Same thing, like 200 billion with Canada. We have 300. We have a deficit with Mexico of $350 billion. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to let that happen.
So we've got more tariffs to come. Cheryl, Todd, let's get into it. On the one hand, President Trump was very clear about steel and aluminum tariffs. They will face 25%. But this week, Cheryl, what we haven't heard yet, which we will get the details about, are the tariffs that will go into effect against Europe. And that's what I was hearing over the weekend and what I'm expecting President Trump to announce tomorrow. And you know that VAT tax that we all pay when we're in Europe, when we're coming back, we've got the VAT tax to face. President Trump is going to equal it out. He's going to put a reciprocal tariff on Europe, and then he's going to add on to it that VAT tax, Cheryl.
Yeah, and that reciprocal tariff, we're expecting to get the details of that, to your point, Maria, either tomorrow or Wednesday. Today is that announcement on the 25% steel aluminum tariffs across the country. But what's so interesting about the reciprocal tariff is, Senator Bernie Moreno, and he, of course, the Ohio senator, is an ally of President Trump. And he goes, look, think of this in two buckets. And Todd and I talked about this on his show this morning. It's either punitive tariffs, and that is to secure the border, or you've got, and that's where you talk about China, or you've got structural long-term tariffs. And that's what President Trump was saying to Brett Baer. that we have been taking advantage for too long. The other thing I will say, though, a quick point on China. There are reports that what they're doing now is they're readying antitrust investigations against U.S. technology companies. That's going to be their way to start to strike back. We haven't heard yet from Canada, in particular, on these steel and aluminum tariffs or the Europeans, but it's a new day this morning, Maria.
Yeah, I mean, I think this Europe tax is going to be interesting, Todd. It's going to basically equate what Europe has been doing to the United States. So, look, I would expect markets to get nervous about it, but when all is said and done, when you look at what they're charging the United States and what the U.S. charges them, it's not reciprocal right now. It's going to be.
And it's all part of an overall approach that Trump has had since day one. When I say day one, I mean 2015 day one. And he even said that prior. Why does America always have to do the opposite of what everybody else does when everybody else tries to take advantage of us? In other words, why do we have to be the world's piggy bank? Why do we have to fund everything? And then when it push comes to shove, when it comes to tariffs and stuff like this, why do other countries get to charge our people and yet it's not reciprocal in return? It's part of an overall approach to just say everything's going to be even, everything's going to be fair, and we should all appreciate that, and there shouldn't be pushback. Yes, some things could cost more, but at the end of the day, shouldn't we be treating other countries the exact way they treat us?
Finally, Todd, I want to mention this on the Financial Times this morning as we look toward President Trump's confirmation picks and the hearings on his cabinet. Trump's choice to lead the FBI, Kash Patel, is under fire now because of investments that he may have had in his ties to this elite depot group. This elite depot owns Chinese clothes company shares Shein. Now, Patel worked as a consultant for Elite Depot for 8 months, stating in a financial disclosure form that he held between $1 and $5 million worth of Elite Depot shares. The company, Elite Depot, is a Cayman Islands group, according to UK Business Records, which owns shares of Shein. Shein, of course, is a Chinese retailer, and human rights groups and U.S. lawmakers, including Marco Rubio, has accused Shein of using forced labor in its operations in China. So, Todd, this is the latest pushback from these Democrat senators who do not want Trump to get his cabinet in place anytime soon.
Yeah, and obviously, is their attempt at obstruction. Look, I don't love the fact that Kash Patel has this relationship. I'm just going to come right out and say it. But at the end of the day, everything else in his record, everything else in his resume up till this point has indicated that he is going to get rid of the corruption that is in the FBI and make it a body that protects American citizens. I think there needs to be a decoupling. We've talked about this on your show for the better part of 4 years. But until that is a bigger decoupling from everybody in the nation, you can't beat up Kash Patel for trying to get paid at one point in his life, especially going forward. Make sure to be tough on China.
All right, it looks like J.D. Vance and Michael Waltz are now running the TikTok situation. They put President Trump put them in charge of a potential TikTok sale and a divestiture. We'll talk about that coming up.
Joining us now is Steve Forbes, Forbes Media Chairman and Editor-in-Chief, and John Carney, Breitbart Finance and Economics Editor and co-author of Breitbart Business Digest. Gentlemen, great to see you in studio. Thanks for being here. Steve, this jobs report is so emblematic of economics. I mean, in the past 4 years, we've seen the creation of so many useless jobs, and
Hey everybody, I want to watch this about Disney Plus. How's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day. Today we're going to be discussing what you probably already know if you've been watching this channel for a while, which is why using streaming services is went from being a really smart way to avoid the aggravation of having to go through 20 different NCP sites and torrent sites and email to try to find what you were looking for, to a completely nonsensical way to consume media. Whether you're talking about streaming sites that restrict you from getting high-resolution content unless you use a piece of hardware that is fundamentally spyware, or you're dealing with a streaming company that now says if you pay us more money, you'll avoid the ads, and then gives you the ads. Just so you know, Blackberry, some of our viewers do have a subwoofer, so when you do that, you're really, really ugly.
Security chief, new arrivals. Could have used you sooner, but welcome just the same. I'm in the mansion. Command cell. Injured, but intact. Most everyone else is... You've got eyes. Look, we need to get this situation under control ASAP. Be ready for anything.
It's the ability treatment. Well, I'm like natural. That is one of my favorite books of all time. No, I think it's a big problem with like streaming services. They kind of like, you know how like Spotify is what Netflix should have been. If Netflix is Spotify is Gandalf. This is the way Netflix should have fucking turned into. This is what it should have been, yes, as it was meant to be. Because Spotify has fucking everything. Imagine if you had to go to like Tidal, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and like, you know, like let's say Apple Music has Taylor Swift, Amazon Music has Rolling Stones, you can't listen to The Weeknd unless you go on Spotify, and then there's like the new Kanye album, right? Oh my god. How annoying would that be?
You know, boss, you walk a really fine line between love and dark, murderous fucking rage.
And today we're going to discuss one of many reasons that these streaming services. If to consume media is not a great way to consume media. But back in the day, it was a really nice idea. You pay $230 a month, and you wind up getting an ad-free viewing experience where you're able to consume all different types of media. You no longer have to deal with NC ads, or you no longer have to go to torrent sites.
And torrent sites are inconvenient. Spotify is into the pirating music. And the price I pay for that is
downloaded is corrupt, or I don't have files for this. Not enough seeders to get the end of this. It's great. Until now, you have all these fracturing of different services where you have to have 4 or 6 different streaming services in order to get the media that you want. And a lot of streaming services will pull certain things that you may have subscribed to them for. You have streaming services that will not allow you to get the high-resolution version of your content unless you watch it on a device that's behind spyware. And now you have Disney and other streaming providers as well doing this thing where you pay for a free subscription plan. You pay extra for the free subscription plan. And then they send you a notice that with their clarity, as we continue to increase, yep, I'm good. Make available to you. Circumstances may require that certain titles and types of content include ads, even in our no ads or ad-free subscription tiers.
How is this not Oh, that's right. It is. So, when you say no ads, and then there's ads, I think somebody here is fucking lying. I'm just saying. This is insane. I would unsub immediately. I think that these companies do this in shitification because the government lets them.
You know what I think people should be able to do? I think they should be able to get their money back. If you paid for the ad-free service, you should immediately get your fucking money back proactively if they've changed it. Because now they have changed the nature of the deal inside of the contract, and they have removed the fact that the main advertising feature retroactively. Well, what I think is that if you paid for, let's say, a 6-month plan, and you're 3 months into the plan, I think you should get 3 months back for the money. Like, you should be able to cancel your shit and get your money back. When this class action lawsuit went, yeah. And it's just crazy that, yeah, it's a 1-year standard. Now, I don't think you should get money back. You already watched it before. That's fine. But they're double dipping. They are. Yes, they're literally, yeah. Disney, bro, like, what is this? Disney thinks that they have the IP rights to Darth Vader's negotiation tactics. I've altered the deal. Pray that I don't alter it any further. This is insane.
And then when you read their agreement, service tiers with or without ads. We offer different Disney Plus and Hulu service tiers, some with advertisements and some predominantly without. Service tiers described as no ads or ad-free are generally free of commercial interruptions, with certain exceptions that may change from time to time, including where 1. Streaming rights or other limitations require certain content to play with ads, or 2. Ads are served in certain live or linear content or special events and replays thereof. I can get that.
That's understandable, right? If, like, you watch the Super Bowl, for example, they might have some live ad inside.
Pretty sweet. We got PlayStation back up. Oh, come on.
Monday, February 10th, 2025. I'm on Echo 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. We're going to look at the Fed today. There's talk that Doge, with the help of Ron Paul, is going to audit the Fed. I think they should go a step further if they do audit the Fed. After they audit the Fed, they need to end the Fed. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And of course, there's so much going on, it's difficult to keep track of everything. We've seen that China has imposed tariffs on the U.S. The U.S. has imposed tariffs on steel and aluminium, or aluminum, as the Americans call it.
Security Chief, the new arrivals, could have used you sooner. Welcome to the Senate. I'm in the mansion. Command center.
Of steel from the United States and one of the biggest exporters of
you got eyes.
aluminum or
Look,
aluminium
we
to
need
the
to get
United
this
States.
situation under
But
control ASAP.
the other thing I want to know is a rule by lemon. This is how it feels right now. He said once, there are decades when nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen. So I think that's where we are at. Last night during the live stream, we were talking about what's happening. But Brad said it's shocking that they're actually doing what they said they're going to do, especially as it's up to SAIT. I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. The Fed. So, why am I talking about this? Well, because ever since I started this channel, back in late 2015, my mission has been to expose this financial system, monetary system, central banking system that we have. I've been promoting elementary school economics of sound money, gold and silver, no central banking, small government, laissez-faire.
You give me an axe, I'm gonna turn you into fire starters.
My wife went to mushroom school economics Congress
Rock
releases
Looks like there'll be no rest till after.
2002, it's the 20th anniversary, and
Any day now, the bomb's
on call here on this channel before, maybe once or twice. I'll try to find the link to my interview with him, and I'm going to put it up here in the cards. Ron Paul, well, he's been a champion of bringing transparency to the Federal Reserve and also pushing for the end of the Federal Reserve for many, many decades. And it was really good to see that people like Elon Musk are actually giving him the time of the day. And this is what I mean here, as you can see. This is from X, and it's posted by Elon Musk. Prior to this post, a lot of people were saying, oh, this is just speculation that Doge is going to audit the Fed and that Ron Paul is going to help. But actually, Elon Musk came out and said this will be great. Notice he didn't say this would be great. So, and the post that he reposted said Elon Musk is considering to have Ron Paul head up an audit of the Federal Reserve, and it's from Tara Bull at TerraBull808 on X. I have to give her credit, of course. So the other thing I would say, yes, audit the Federal Reserve, and also find out and tell the American people who are the owners behind each regional Federal Reserve bank. Because if you didn't know, the structure of the Federal Reserve System is that the Federal Reserve Board in Washington, D.C. is a government agency, but the 12 regional banks are all private banks. So it's a public-private partnership, which, of course, is fascism. And I think the American people and the world need to know who's behind the Federal Reserve. Yes, audit the Fed, and then abolish it. It was created by an act of Congress, so the president, I don't think, can sign an executive order and abolish the Fed. It has to go through Congress. This is very encouraging. And you might ask, how can we get along financially and economically without the Federal Reserve or a central bank?
The 30-day reprieve on tariffs promised by the White House could come to an end today if Donald Trump follows through on his threat to levy a 25% tax on steel and aluminum imports to the U.S. And if they do, Canada's ambassador to France says water will elect.
Canada will respond if there is an executive order. Free words are good for everyone, negative for everyone, and that's something that you should do between friends.
Speaking with reporters at the Canadian Embassy, Stéphane Dion reiterated the need to diversify trade since the U.S. is becoming, in his words, less reliable economically. But it's not just the economy. Trump used Sunday night about the U.S. being less reliable militarily. They don't pay very much for military. The reason they don't pay much is they assume they're going to protect them. That's not an assumption that you make, because why don't we do anything for the budget? The U.S. president questioning it. Canada, but bedrock of both countries' NATO membership. The Dion is just not talking. Dion, the former Liberal leader and Justice Trudeau's External Affairs Minister, himself views that the Americans could be violating UN rules.
According to international law, it's not related to international law. So we are against that.
So you think the Americans are so you must think the Americans are
just saying that in order to respect international law,
While Dion spoke at length with reporters, we've yet to hear from the Prime Minister about the tariff threats, which would have a major impact.
What's fun?
It was a threesome. No, it's not what it was.
We cheating again? I'm not surprised if you are. You're a joke.
Honestly, it's not a bad makeup.
People. That's why you're here.
This is what I do. Well, let's talk about the manager down there. Look at the movie. So, yeah. You guys are
He's pretty. And tight.
You simply today and take control of your money. Oh, okay.
Texas, and this is financial
For a
audit.
team who didn't expect to take on the
Thanks for
apocalypse
coming
today.
down. Addison, a place I've never heard of, but that's okay. Let's start with you. What do you do? Well, first of all, are we married?
No.
Working on it, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I was like getting some vibes. I was like, are you pregnant? I didn't even know, so I had to ask. Okay. So we're trying to get into this marriage situation with, good financial footholds. That's good. So when are we getting married?
We're trying to do April 12th.
Trying?
Yeah, trying.
What is trying?
We kind of announced it, and then I kind of took it back, just because we're not really sure what we want to do.
But, like, for the wedding? Is that what you're saying?
Like, I want to just go down to the I've been married before, and I got divorced.
You've been married?
Yeah. So I've got
Okay, you got a bit more time.
Yeah.
A bit more time. 2020. Yeah. I'm almost 30. We're in the same boat. We didn't want to come through a divorce or marriage either. So
I don't
I
recommend
get
it. Well, the divorce part. The marriage is fine.
The divorce. Wait, when did you guys get together?
It'll be 3 years we've been together in March.
3 years. Okay, when were you married?
See, that's like a blur because it wasn't a good marriage. So like,
It wasn't a good marriage.
no, it was around 2017 when I had my son.
Interesting. Wait, was it a dude or a chick?
It was a dude.
Oh, you were married to a guy.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay.
Clearly, I don't like men, but
We realized that helmet of the hood wasn't the way to go.
yeah,
Okay, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, okay. Well, I'm curious about that. We'll dive into your guys' backstory. First, let's start with you, Sierra. What do you do for a living?
I am a police manager.
Rapid response team
for electric
Alpha,
department.
Security Chief Blanchard.
What do you mean?
How copy?
I just got a
Barricading
raise.
command center.
How many
Have a
hours a
little
week?
income. All
Paid
in.
time off?
See if
Okay,
there's
so how
anyone
many
left to
weeks
save.
should we
Body cam
to take
fly.
home on a monthly
I'll
basis?
keep eyes on.
Around 30 minutes.
This is supposed to be check my doubts. Okay, so the cost of living is a little on for the Texas area.
Yeah.
So what do you do for a living?
I work in
Okay, what do you do?
right now. 7.
Okay. How many hours? What do you do for
It depends on the day. I either stick or I shift or I help do coordinator stuff on the whole place.
Okay, so the masked one does manual labor.
Area. You've got
Okay.
3 genocide personnel
Racist,
missing.
I'll be honest. But, very good. What hits your copy?
Care of our own.
It is a good question.
What did I do question? What do you mean? Then what are you saying? What is that?
She doesn't.
You're gonna get married with someone who doesn't know her.
It's surprising if this was the same one that Pandora chick got.
You're getting married. You've been together for 3 years.
Yeah, it's around
That's a relief. I was sure you'd have me over a barrel. Again.
kind of just, hope for the best.
Let's do it again. Many bloody times.
Okay, that's fine. I get it.
I have budget templates that I watch. I try to keep up with the budget and focus on writing and know how much I have put in. She kind of plan my paycheck so I know where it's going. She just kind of, I tell her that I can and she gives it to me. If she can give it to me.
Okay, I see. So one person financially educated, one who will, the other will be spent. What?
This is...
So what's going on? Why is it people learning to become training real estate yourself?
I just don't have much budget.
You never looked up a YouTube video.
No.
And that's okay. Honestly, that's why we put together our budgeting program, because there's like a billion pieces of information out there. It's hard to wait till it's actually right. You know, everyone does it in a different way. Okay, so obviously go through that class together, so you guys are on the same page. Are we on the same page related to finances? I mean, you could be an anchor in the relationship, depending if we're headed into the marriage like this. Are we on the same pages with at least understanding our goals, what our finances are?
Yeah, we talk about our goals.
And
I stick to them. I don't know about her. Because we don't share a bank account, so I really don't know.
Are you guys ready for marriage? If we're okay.
That's what I said. You
already had a marriage end.
Yeah.
Should we really be going into a marriage if... Doesn't sound like you guys already, at least from the financial communication sake.
Financials, no. That's part of the reason. That's why we don't have a joint bank account, and I'm not getting one. Until...
Why?
She figures it out. I'm not
Okay, how's she gonna figure it out? Okay, I need information here. Describe what is happening.
Well, if I have a joint bank account, all my money's in that account, and I know what needs to be in there and what's coming out, and she doesn't. She could just, like, spend too much, and then we're, like, back in the same predicament of not having
Why aren't we sitting down and talking about it then? Going through transactions, understanding where things are, and then deciding together where we want to be on... Okay, so what's the issue?
I just have stuff that randomly comes out.
Like what? What is the stuff that randomly comes out?
So, it's either my Apple storage, or...
Okay, why is it not in the budget then? We can put it in the budget.
Which we do. She just never knows
then
the
that's
date.
not random stuff.
Yeah, she never knows the date.
Well, you do if you guys sit down... Don't need to rage. Only 5 minutes in. If we were sitting down and looking at our last month, we would know the date. If we sit down and do it, you say you sit down and do it. Obviously not. If we don't know that, what do you mean?
I've made her a calendar. I've made her a Notion template. I've made her a Google Sheets template. I made her a bunch of things.
Alright, we will not allow you guys, I mean legally we will, but we will not allow you guys to leave this place until you guys download the Simpler Budget app, the one we created. You guys will create an account. Eventually we'll have shared accounts, but you guys will create a single account under an email. You guys are going to start budgeting this and seeing what your household looks like, okay? And you guys get, obviously, the premium version for free forever as guests, so make sure you go through all the education, automatic account connections, all that good stuff. Work with the financial professionals that are in there. Do all the good stuff. You don't leave until you do that. If we can't even sit down and random stuff, what's random stuff? You would see that in this. Why have you never just used the budgeting app? You would see it. You would see it. It would tell you. It would tell you.
Well,
no answer for that. Why haven't you put in a step, just in effort? It sounds like your fiance has built out
Were you awake? Thought I heard you in here. You awake, Arvin?
Yeah. Why do you want?
Midnight snack again? Kinda hungry.
You did this yesterday, man.
But it's so tasty at night.
At the door. Please.
Yeah.
All these doors do.
Yeah.
So what do you want? What do you want?
And ham sandwich, I guess. You know, what's the
Let me see if we have it. Yeah, we do. I think we can soda first.
wonder how many creepers are outside right now.
No, imagine.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, Chica. Chica, look. Look at this. Look.
Just outside the window.
Look. Look.
Did you have an apple? Did you see that? It's like I'm eating one.
Oh, this little week. Crap.
Well, let's just go try to sleep then.
What the hell was that?
What?
Just tired.
Security chief to new arrivals. Could have used you sooner, but welcome just the same.
Good night, bro.
I'm in the mansion. Command center. Injured, but intact. Most everyone else is, well, I've got eyes. Look, we need to get the situation under control ASAP. Be ready for anything.
I just stopped real quick. Really shaky. Oh no, I saw her.
One time for you, you lucky undead bastard.
I just want to saw something. Is it on this house?
Wait, let's go check. Just look out the porch.
Search the area. We've got 3 Jana science personnel missing.
It's possible to find out.
Your knowledge is critical to mission success. We take care of our own.
Bad. What? I can't breathe. Oh, nice boy. I think I have to upload for this. I'll just leave my game. I'll break my game. Just go upstairs and
Better
see
a
what's
gamble
happening.
here than some dodgy warehouse poker game. Who fuckers cheat?
Oh, great.
The future is motherfucking now.
I'm gonna wait for one of these blocks. Look at the top. Stairs. Stairs. I'm pissed. I don't care. Let's just go to bed.
In today's video, we're covering the Trump tax cuts. I'll also be giving you some of my predictions. So we're going to start with this video clip of the White House press secretary regarding President Trump's tax priorities.
So these are the top priorities of the Trump administration that the president has laid out for members in the leadership. No tax on tips, which is obviously what the public campaign finance is. No tax on seniors' Social Security. No tax on overtime pay. Renewing President Trump's 2017 tax cuts. Yes, these are president's priorities. Adjusting the SALT tax to eliminate all the special taxes for millionaire sports team owners. Close the Perry secret tax deduction loophole. Tax cuts for Made in America products. This will be the largest tax cut in history for middle-class working Americans. The president is committed to working with Congress to get this done.
Okay, now I want to show you this. Here's what the White House posted on their X account. President Trump's tax priorities. So I want to give you some more insight on each of these items, and we'll just go down the line, starting with no tax on tips. So just to remind you, this was a campaign promise, a big one, by President Trump, and he wants to deliver. So I want to show you what he recently said in Las Vegas.
In the coming weeks, I'll be working with Congress to get a bill on my desk that cuts taxes for workers, families, small businesses, and very importantly, consumers. My promise will lead to anything about this. And I'm sure that no influence on the state, like the one this crazy massive majority, the state that hasn't been won by Republicans for decades. But I'm sure you have we're going to get it for you. No tax on income.
So listen, I want to tell you this. I know the first thing that people are going to think, and that's if none of your income is being made from tips, then how do you get in on this, right? How do you get in on this benefits? So I'll just tell you that there are ways to reclassify your income as tipped income, and that you can get your money tax-free. I know how. But I'll tell you this, with that being said, it is my belief to stop creative people like me that there will be a limit to how much of tipped income will be tax-free. So no details have been released about whether there's going to be a cap. You know, this bill needs to still get drafted. But my opinion is that there's going to be a limitation of how much of your tipped income will be tax-free. So you probably haven't heard this prediction that there's going to be a cap, because this is my opinion from experience of how this works. But running into this, we can screw some people that make money from tips. My answer is absolutely. The question is by how much, which really asks what's the cap for it to be. Now, moving on to no tax on senior Social Security income. First, I want to say it's about time. So this is my opinion. To me, it is ridiculous that we pay in Social Security taxes, so that's our money. But when we receive it, we have to pay taxes on it. That's tax on tax. That's outrageous. Okay, so I want to show you what President Trump said about this issue.
We're going to have no tax on seniors' Social Security.
Okay, now I want to show you this. This is, of course, straight from the IRS website. If you're single, head of household, or married separately, if your income is above $25,000, the IRS taxes 50% of your Social Security income. So to clarify, it's not a 50% tax rate, but half your Social Security income will be subject to tax. If you're married filing jointly and your combined income is $32,000 or more, the IRS taxes 50% of your Social Security income. Now, if you're single, head of household, a widower, or married filing separately, and your income is above $34,000, the IRS taxes 85% of your Social Security income. If you're married filing jointly, that starts $44,000 of combined income. So this is crazy. Listen, it's not low, these thresholds are. Remember to adjust these figures for inflation. Now, this is a very important question. Will Trump try to adjust the threshold, or is he going to try to make all of it tax-free? I predict he's going to make all of it tax-free. That's just my opinion, but let's see what happens. Now let's move on to no tax on overtime pay. So first I want to show you what President Trump said.
I'm also announcing that as part of our additional tax cuts, we will end all taxes on overtime.
Man, there's so much going on up there anyway.
That gives people more of an incentive to work. It gives the companies a lot. It's a lot easier to get the vehicle. And you know, I went to some Congress quick once, and I said, "What do you think?" They said, "We would be happily get a whole workforce, no taxes on overtime."
Okay, so in that video clip, you
Giving a statement until they see the executive first Trump administration calling it now after this flurry of the first few weeks of the Trump administration 2.0 that it is better and to react to what's actually done, not what's said and not what's right. So we're still waiting for answers. So first we have to see the executive order, and so do they.
You know that you're not so let's hope that there's together. We keep doing so while we're talking about steel,
Bonus points.
Beats pumping iron at the gym.
We've heard some people say that some people have already lost jobs. Are you seeing evidence of that? No, not yet.
But the credit has been out there for a little bit, but the immediate impact of job loss is not here yet. What we need to focus on is the business.
Can you put some perspective on
Kaboom!
So your union put out a statement where you noted that Canada imports 39% of its steel from the United States and exports 94% of its production. I'm not in this industry. There are things about it.
You can smell like moldy ass for a bit, but the results? Fucking crap.
Max Armor.
So to speak, about it. The consequences.
How did your workers fare the first week?
Feels like payday every time I see this thing.
I mean, there were impacts. Importers. We came up with work sharing programs, came up with other mental programs that are readily available.
Extraction bird in your ale. Limited time offer.
that's one of the places. That's basically. It's working. No need to go away from that.
Do you think the government this time should review
as a valuable trading partner to the U.S. We're not going to break it.
That's it. Send in the bird. The nerds are all cranky and I'm one step away from going tits up.
Hang tight.
LT's crowded. Get it under control.
You like that? I know I saw it.
Good position. Looks pretty hairy down there. Got a full house. We're out of here.
Now Canadians are pissed off, feel insulted. We were good neighbors. We worked together to build a good economy, and Donald Trump has insulted us. People feel offended at this idea of the 51st state. So Canadians on their own are already taking action. They're saying, we're going to buy Canadian, we're going to boycott American. And I want to acknowledge all the Canadians making that decision. Thank you for doing that. It's the right thing to do. But now Canadians are pissed off. They feel insulted. We were good neighbors. We worked together to build a good economy, and Donald Trump has insulted us. People feel offended at this idea of the 51st state. So Canadians on their own are already taking action. They're saying, we're going to buy Canadian, we're going to boycott American. And I want to acknowledge all the Canadians making that decision. Thank you for doing that. It's the right thing to do. But now Canadians are pissed off. They feel insulted. We were good neighbors. We worked together to build a good economy, and Donald Trump has insulted us. People feel offended at this idea of the 51st state. So Canadians on their own are already taking action. They're saying, we're going to buy Canadian, we're going to boycott American. And I want to acknowledge all the Canadians making that decision. Thank you for doing that. It's the right thing to do. But now Canadians are pissed off. They feel insulted. We were good neighbors. We worked together to build a good economy, and Donald Trump has insulted us.
Canadians would let up to the Americans. Donald Trump's 25% tariff, this is not okay.
Is it not okay? And if you are listening to me, Donald Trump, you must know we have been very good neighbors to you.
Joining me now is EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin. Lee, I haven't seen you since your appointment. Congratulations on that. The president says the people wanted it. They do want it, and they're seeing in real time the discoveries made by the Doge Group, coming up with all sorts of things. I haven't heard one Democrat say that any of the completely wasteful spending that's been exposed is a good thing. Have you?
Professor Kraft indicated the Sentinel artifact is
It's really exposing those members of Congress who have a problem with cutting out fraud and waste and abuse inside of our government. We should have all of Congress cheering on an effort to make sure that our government is being a good steward of the tax dollars. I know the American government from all across this country, they're cheering on the government and saying, gosh, it's been too long. I've been waiting years for someone to step up like this. And that's one of the reasons why they elected President Trump. He said he was going to do this. He's delivering on his promise.
And AID is a perfect place to start because, again, good intentions maybe when some of these programs were started, but it's just become so so tied into the morass of bureaucracy. Mike Waltz, the new National Security Advisor, spoke about that on Sunday. Play the tape.
We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in money that's going to places right now, this is ridiculous. And there are many that haven't seen this. It's a big scam. Now, there's some good money, and we can do that through anyone.
Take it from a smuggler who knows. Hands are basically pineapples filled with jam.
Let him take care of the few good ones. So I don't know if it's TikToks or what's going on, but the people, look, I ran on this, and the people want me to find it. And I've had a great help with Elon Musk, who's been terrific.
British explorer
Obviously, Mike Waltz, that was the side we played before. The point that Mike Waltz was making is we're only getting virtually 10 cents on every dollar spent is going to the project and to the people that it was going to. And I don't know about you, but when I give money to a charity, the first thing I look at is how much is spent by that charity on administrative costs, on overhead. If it's over 10%, I say no doing. In this case, it's like 90% is going to overhead. I mean, it just shows you how completely, powerfully these programs are run by AID.
What I'm seeing now is a line-by-line accounting. And not only is that important to make sure that funds in the past and currently are going out the right way, but it also resets the path forward. That there's going to be this level of accountability so that when grants are being distributed, that there's an expectation that there's going to be this line-by-line accounting. It should be the new normal. We saw it inside of the EPA. We did our own research, and there's a story that came out on it towards the end of last week in the Free Beacon. A Canadian electric vehicle manufacturer declares bankruptcy after receiving $160 million from the EPA. Well, guess what? They still haven't given out $85 million worth of those school buses to 55 school districts. We're going to do that line-by-line accounting, too.
All right. Now, finally, I just want to ask you about your job at EPA and how much of the regulations that are so costly for businesses in America are going to be stripped away by you. These regulations that very often just make life difficult. Don't do anything to make life.
David, we have our core mission to protect the human health and the environment, but we have to do so cognizant that the American public spoke and they have economic concerns that they want the government to address. So that means making the United States the AI capital, bringing back American auto jobs, and so much more, especially unleashing energy dominance. These are all priorities of the American people, priorities of President Trump, so they are priorities of mine and the EPA.
Sheldon, good to see you. Thank you very much. Joining us now is Senator
announcement right here on Center. Thank you ever so much for doing this. Can I
Go through this Politico stuff.
somehow, Politico denies everything. The word these rumors come from USAID either helped them with subscription money, which helps them stay in business.
Double
Or some estimates are it was not 8 million, it was 34 million and change. President Trump talked about it today. Said they were getting to the party.
Tear them to pieces.
Thought I left that incessant screeching behind when I dumped my eggs.
Very glad you have a really good anyway, and by the way, we don't go too far. I mean, during the this one is never they were spreading Max Ammo. I think the political thing, as crazy as that is, but you still have millions of dollars. Essentially, have trees, polygons, operas, and API training. This stuff is insane. I think it's the life. I love it.
Beats the hell out of shooting lawn gnomes with an air rifle.
Stuck here.
Any hotshots would have beat my high score?
Let's say Medicaid, which is supposed to be a health care program for the poor. But if you're an able-bodied person, why shouldn't you get just for that, which is now in the paper?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we move this reconciliation package, we deal with all things tax related. I think those are the kind of things we're going to try to do to have work requirements. People support that. People support that.
Probably
if you're able-bodied, they want a safety net for people who really do need the help. But most people believe that if you're able to work, you should go work. And it's supposed to be temporary, especially
so any job benefit if you're able-bodied.
They're terrified of what's going to be exposed. USAID is the tip of the iceberg. It's a great place to start with a lot of broad reviews. But it is the tip of the iceberg. Listen, as we open up the books here, the American people, this is a real important moment, I think, for Republicans to be on the side of the reformers, which is what the 2024 cycle is all about. It's about disruptors versus the establishment. So let's go.
Transparency. They're talking about looking at the FDA, Federal Drug Administration, or the CDC, which was the least transparent operation in the history of the earth, as we know, from the Tony Fauci days. These are things taxpayers have a right to know. A lot of stuff we don't need. I mean, Elon Musk is not changing policy so much as he's trying to reform and improve efficiency, which sounds like today, but over the years, talking trillions.
Right, and I think this is putting bones when people talk about how the administrative state has got to.
Yes.
This is actually what that means, right? These people are unaccountable. They work with agencies. If they issue a guidance letter, let alone a rule that obligates the law that Congress never passed, it could destroy your livelihood, destroy your liberty. Look no further what OSHA did with the vaccine. So now we're seeing dollars and cents attached now to these bureaucracies that really have to quite frankly erode. So this is what we talked about President Trump. We actually have the ability now to identify the space, and let's go after it. I really do think
so. This stuff can go into whatever budget.
Yes.
All right. A lot of statements in this, and I don't think it's either or. What I'm trying to see is that tax cuts have to go in early. If you wait until the end of the year, corporations won't know, small businesses won't know, individuals won't know. You want to burst through. You want to get a complete economic research. I call it the blue-collar boom. You don't need $5 trillion in tax cuts right off the bat, as some of my conservative friends say. You don't need that. Basically, the Trump tax cuts, extending them is cost-free. I'm saying it's cost-free. Mike Crapo, you know, your colleague is saying it's cost-free. It's a baseline argument with CBO. CBO just said, oh, we missed by $2 trillion, $1.9 trillion. It came in $1.9 trillion in revenue, higher than we thought.
That's right, and that's why I accept the premise.
Therefore,
yes, this leads to growth. All the people who were screaming that the sky was going to fall back in 2017, revenues went up. In fact, if we went back to just the